The AH-64 Apache is arguably the most recognizable attack helicopter in the world, and Hollywood has spent decades cementing its image as an invincible flying god of war. When we watch a summer blockbuster, we see these machines diving into urban canyons and performing barrel rolls like they are nimble fighter jets. But the reality of operating a 20,000-pound attack helicopter is governed by rigid laws of physics and strict military doctrine that movies almost always ignore. To understand why the Apache does not fly like it does on the silver screen, we first have to look at the concept of maneuverability versus stability. In a film, you might see an Apache pilot yanking the cyclic and performing a high-speed loop, or a dramatic roll to dodge a heat-seeking missile. While a modern Apache is capable of some incredibly impressive maneuvers, it is fundamentally designed as a stable weapons platform rather than a stunt aircraft. The rotor system on an Apache is a complex masterpiece of engineering, but it is subjected to immense centrifugal forces. Every time a pilot attempts a high-G maneuver, they are putting thousands of pounds of stress on the rotor mast and the blades. In a movie, these parts are indestructible, but in real life, exceeding the structural limits can lead to a catastrophic failure of the main rotor hub, which would effectively turn the helicopter into a falling rock in a matter of seconds. Beyond the physical stress on the airframe, we have to talk about the weight. A fully combat-loaded 864D or E model is a massive machine. When you factor in the fuel and the armor plating, plus a full load of 16 Hellfire missiles and 1,200 rounds of 30mm ammunition, you are looking at a gross weight that can exceed 21,000 pounds. This mass creates tremendous inertia. In the movies, you see these helicopters stopping on a dime or changing direction instantly, as if they have no weight at all. In the real world, an Apache pilot has to plan every move several seconds in advance. You cannot just whip an 8-ton machine around a street corner at 150 miles per hour without the laws of physics pushing you wide into a building. This brings us to the myth of the silent hunter. Hollywood directors love to have an Apache sneak up directly behind a villain without being heard until it is only 50 feet away. In reality, the sound of two General Electric T700 turboshaft engines and the massive main rotor blades beating the air can be heard from miles away, depending on the terrain and atmospheric conditions. An Apache does not sneak up on you by being quiet. It sneaks up on you by using the terrain to mask its acoustic signature and staying below the line of sight of your radar and your eyes. The way the Apache uses its weapons is another area where movies get it completely wrong. We have all seen the scenes where an Apache flies right into the middle of a base and hovers 10 feet off the ground while the pilot guns down enemies with a chain gun. This is a great way to get a multi-million-dollar helicopter shot down by a simple rocket-propelled grenade, or even heavy machine gun fire. The Apache is designed to be a standoff killer. Its primary weapon, the AGM-114 Hellfire missile, has a range of about 5 miles. A real Apache crew wants to be so far away that the enemy does not even know they are in the area. They prefer to sit behind a ridgeline or a thick forest canopy and only peek the longbow radar dome, which sits on top of the main rotor, over the obstacle. They scan the battlefield and find targets, then pop up just long enough to fire a missile before disappearing back into cover. This is called nap of the earth flying, and it is much more of a high-stakes game of hide-and-seek than the Rambo-style charges we see in cinema. The 30mm M230 chain gun is also misrepresented. In movies, it seems to have infinite ammunition and never stops firing. In a real combat loadout, the helicopter carries 1,200 rounds, and the gun is designed to fire in short, controlled bursts to prevent the barrel from overheating and to maintain accuracy. If a pilot held the trigger down as long as they do in movies, the gun would likely jam, or the barrel would warp from the intense heat within a minute. Another fascinating element that movies fail to capture is the mental workload of the pilots and the unique technology they use to see the world. Every movie shows the pilot looking through a high-tech glass canopy with a simple head-up display, but the reality is far more taxing on the human brain. Apache pilots use the integrated helmet and display sighting system, which involves a small monocle over the pilot's right eye. This monocle feeds a constant stream of flight data and infrared imagery directly to that one eye, while the left eye is left to look at the actual cockpit and the world outside. This creates a terrifying sensory split, where the brain has to process two completely different images at once. Experienced pilots have reported that after long missions, their eyes will actually move independently for a short time. This is a level of psychological and physical strain that a movie camera cannot easily capture. Furthermore, the cockpit of an Apache is not a spacious glass dome. It is a cramped and utilitarian space filled with hundreds of switches and digital displays that require constant monitoring. There is no room for the dramatic gestures and mid-air conversations we see in films, because the pilots are too busy managing engine torque and transmission temperatures and fuel flow rates. When we talk about speed, we often see Apaches chasing down fast-moving vehicles or even jets in movies. While the Apache is fast for a helicopter with a top speed around 180 miles per hour, it is still significantly slower than almost any fixed-wing combat aircraft. Its power is not in its top speed, but in its ability to operate in the dirt and the shadows. The way an Apache moves is more like a predator stalking through tall grass than a hawk diving from the sky. It moves in fits and starts and utilizes every dip in the ground and every cluster of trees to stay hidden. If an Apache is caught out in the open in a high-speed chase, it is in a very vulnerable position. The doctrine of the United States Army emphasizes that the Apache should always have the first look and the first shot. If the pilot is forced into a dogfight, like you see in an action movie, something has gone terribly wrong with the mission plan. The survivability of the aircraft depends on its armor, which can withstand hits from 23mm anti-aircraft rounds. But no pilot wants to test that armor if they can avoid it. In a film, the hero might take hundreds of bullets and keep flying, but in reality, a single, well-placed shot to a critical hydraulic line or the tail rotor drive shaft can bring down even the most advanced helicopter in the world. This is why real-world tactics are built around staying as far away from the enemy as the sensors will allow. Speaking of sensors, the movies almost always skip over the most important part of the helicopter, which is the target acquisition and designation site. This system is the nose of the helicopter, and it is what allows the crew to see in total darkness or through thick smoke and dust. Instead of just looking out the window and pulling a trigger, the crew is constantly manipulating thermal cameras and laser designators to guide their weapons with surgical precision. This process takes coordination and time, and it is rarely as instantaneous as the movies portray. The communication between the pilot in the back seat and the co-pilot gunner in the front seat is a constant stream of technical data and brief commands, and they work as a single organism to manage the incredible complexity of the machine. The movies make it look like one person is doing everything, but it truly takes two highly trained individuals working in perfect synchronization to make an Apache effective on the battlefield. Even the way the helicopter hovers is a feat of concentration. While modern systems have an auto hover feature, staying stationary in a crosswind while trying to lock onto a target 5 miles away requires constant micro-adjustments to the controls. It is a delicate balancing act that is far more difficult than the movies show. The Apache is not just a vehicle. It is a massive and heavy computer system that happens to have rotor blades. And the way it interacts with the air is a constant battle against gravity and drag. To truly appreciate the AH-64, we have to look past the Hollywood pyrotechnics and understand the sophisticated chess game that real pilots play every time they leave the ground. They are not looking for a fair fight or a cinematic dogfight. They are looking to end the battle before the enemy even knows the game has started. This level of technical detail might not make for a fast-paced action scene in a theater, but it is exactly what makes the Apache the most feared attack helicopter in history. As we move into the specifics of the engine performance and how high altitude affects the lift capacity, we begin to see even more gaps between fiction and reality, because every foot of altitude and every degree of temperature changes how this beast performs in the field.